The barn roof was silver under the rising moon. Little Bunny sat at the edge of the hayloft, watching the last light drain from the sky. He had spent the whole afternoon helping Farmer Gray gather the late squash. 10 pumpkins, each one heavy with the sun of September. His paws still smelled of earth and vine. But now the sun was gone, and the farm had grown dark, darker than usual. A fog had rolled in from the creek, low and thick, turning the fence posts into shadows. Little Bunny could barely see the garden gate. And Farmer Gray was still out there.
Hello?
Somewhere in the pumpkin patch.
Can you hear me?
Calling for the wandering milk cow.
Hello?
Bessie, came the voice, distant and muffled by the fog.
Anyone
Bessie,
home?
where have you gone? Little Bunny's whiskers twitched. He wanted to help. But the dark was deep, and the path was hidden, and he was just one small rabbit with paws that barely reached the latch. Then he saw it. A tiny light, flickering near the old oak tree. Not a lantern, not the moon. Something smaller, something alive. The firefly rose from the tall grass, its glow soft and steady, like a single spark that had forgotten to go out. It hovered for a moment as if waiting. Then it drifted toward the pumpkin patch, and Little Bunny understood. He climbed down from the hayloft, his paws finding the rungs of the ladder without thinking. The ground was damp, and the fog swirled around his ankles. But the light was still there, just ahead, pulsing gently like a breath. Little Bunny followed. That trembling spark was all the trust he needed. If you want to walk through more quiet nights like this, subscribe to Stay with Little Bunny as the seasons change, and tell us in the comments. What small light would you follow if you were lost? The firefly did not fly fast. It moved like the slow rhythm of the farm itself, drifting past the chicken coop, where the hens were tucked into their roosts, floating over the rain barrel, where the last drops of the evening shower still trembled on the rim, guiding him past the potato rows, where the soil was dark and loose. Each step Little Bunny took felt like a small trust. The fog hid the shapes of things, but the firefly's light made the path visible just one paw length ahead. That was enough. And as he walked, Little Bunny remembered something Farmer Gray had told him once.
Of course.
When the fog comes down, he had said, the eyes cannot be trusted, but the heart knows the way home. Little Bunny did not know if his heart knew the way. He only knew that the firefly was moving, and he was moving with it, and that felt like the right thing. They crossed the little wooden bridge over the stream. The water was black and silent. On the other side, the fog thinned for a moment, and Little Bunny saw the shape of the milk cow, Bessie, standing near the old walnut tree, her white flank glowing in the firefly's light. But she was not alone. Farmer Gray was beside her, one hand resting on her neck.
Girl.
His eyes
The soup
closed,
will be wonderful tonight.
his breath slow. Bessie, he whispered. I was so worried.
I found you.
Little Bunny crept closer.
Thank goodness.
The firefly landed on a nearby leaf, its glow reflecting in the dew. Farmer Gray opened his eyes and saw the rabbit.
You found me.
You found me,
You and your little lantern.
he said softly. You and your little lantern. He reached down, and his rough hand, smelling of hay and leather and earth, gently touched Little Bunny's ear. Follow me now, both of you. The fog is thinning. They walked back together. The three of them. The farmer, the cow, and the rabbit. The firefly did not leave them. It stayed just ahead, a tiny golden star in the grey, showing them the way past the root cellar, past the apple trees, past the gate that little Bunny had opened 100 times before. When they reached the barn, Farmer Gray latched the gate and turned to look at Bessie. "You silly old girl," he said, but his voice was warm. "You just wanted to see the walnuts one more time before winter."
Take care.
Bessie blinked her big dark eyes and gave a low, soft moo. Little Bunny thought it sounded like an apology. Farmer Gray lit the lantern that hung by the barn door. Its flame was orange and steady, much brighter than the firefly, but somehow less magical.
It's all right, I've got you
He
now.
looked down at the rabbit whose fur was damp with fog. "Come inside," he said. "I have something for you." And that was enough. The firefly had done its work. It had led them home. This is the kind of faithfulness that makes a farm feel like a family. Subscribe so you and your little one can share more nights by the hearth with Farmer Gray and his animals. And in the comments, share a time when someone small helped you find your way. The kitchen was warm. A small fire crackled in the stove, and the kettle sang a low note. Farmer Gray took down a small wooden bowl and filled it with warm milk from Bessie's morning milking. He added a spoonful of honey from the hive behind the garden. He set the bowl on the floor near the hearth, where the wood was worn smooth by generations of paws and boots. Little Bunny dipped his nose into the milk. It was sweet and warm, and it spread through his chest like the firefly's light had spread through the dark. Farmer Gray sat in his old rocking chair and took off his boots. His feet were tired, and his back was tired, and his eyes were tired from searching through the fog, but his heart was full. "You know," he said, speaking to the firefly which now sat on the windowsill, "I think the fog was a gift. It made us slow down. It made us look for each other." The firefly blinked once, twice, then its light went out, and it was just a small, dark shape against the glass. But little Bunny knew it was still there, still watching, still ready to guide, if needed. After the milk was finished, little Bunny climbed the ladder to the hayloft. His nest was there, a soft hollow of hay and an old wool blanket that Farmer Gray had given him last winter. He curled into it, his nose tucked under his paw. Through the open window he could see the fog still lying low over the fields, but above it, the stars had come out, thousands of them, each one like a firefly that had decided to stay in the sky forever. He thought about the firefly tonight, how it had waited for him at the oak tree, how it had not flown too fast, how it had stayed until everyone was safe. He thought about Farmer Gray's hand on his ear, warm and steady. He thought about Bessie, standing under the walnut tree, not lost at all, just waiting. And somewhere in the dark, he knew another firefly was waking up, another little light, ready to guide someone home. Little Bunny closed his eyes. His breathing slowed. The hay smelled of summer. The barn creaked softly, like an old friend breathing in sleep. And the carrot seed in the earth, it was dreaming too. The fog lifted sometime before dawn. Little Bunny did not see it go. He was deep in sleep, his body curled tight, his whiskers twitching with the last echoes of the night. But Farmer Gray saw it. He stood at the barn door, a cup of coffee warm in his hands, watching the mist unravel like wool from a spindle. The garden returned piece by piece. First the fence, then the squash vines, then the carrot tops, green and damp and waiting. He walked to the pumpkin patch and found the place where Bessie had stood. The walnut tree was still there. The grass was flattened where her hooves had rested. And there, on a low branch, sat the firefly. It did not move when Farmer Gray approached. It sat still, its wings folded, its light dim. It was not waiting for anything. It was simply resting. "Thank you," Farmer Gray said. The firefly blinked once. Then it rose into the air, drifted over the garden, and disappeared into the brightening sky. Little Bunny woke to sunlight on his fur. The hayloft was warm, and the sounds of the farm had begun. A rooster calling from the henhouse, the creak of the pump handle, the soft lowing of Bessie waiting for her morning grain. He stretched his front paws, then his back legs, his whole body shaking off the sleep. His nose twitched. There was a smell in the air, something sweet and new. He climbed down the ladder and found Farmer Gray in the kitchen, slicing bread at the wooden counter. A jar of honey stood open, and a single apple sat on the windowsill, catching the morning light. "Good morning, little helper," Farmer Gray said. Little Bunny sat by the hearth, his paws together, his ears forward. He did not need to ask what happened last night. He remembered it all. The fog, the firefly, the walk through the dark, the warm milk, the feeling of being found. Farmer Gray placed a slice of bread, warm from the oven, on a small saucer, and set it on the floor. Then he sat down in his rocking chair and looked out the window at the garden. "The fog comes and goes," he said quietly, as if speaking to himself. "But the light stays. You just have to follow it." Little Bunny nibbled the bread. It was soft and sweet with honey. Outside, the garden was full of green. The chickens scratched in the dirt. The sun climbed higher, and the firefly was nowhere to be seen. But Little Bunny knew, somewhere in the tall grass in the shadow of the oak tree, in the quiet corners of the farm, a small light was sleeping, waiting for the next time the fog came down. He finished the bread, licked his paws clean, and hopped to the door. The day was beginning, and that was enough. The garden gate swung open, and Little Bunny stepped outside. The world was washed clean by the night's fog. Every leaf, every blade of grass, every stone along the path held a bead of water that caught the sunlight like tiny mirrors. He hopped down the path, past the carrot bed, past the tomato stakes, past the place where the pumpkin vines had begun to yellow at the edges. He stopped at the old oak tree. The grass beneath it was still bent from where Bessie had stood, and on the lowest branch, where the firefly had rested, there was nothing, just bark, just morning air, just the quiet presence of a tree that had seen 1,000 nights like this one. Little Bunny sat beneath the tree and looked up at the sky. The sun was warm on his fur. A single crow circled high above, its black wings catching the light. Somewhere in the barn, Farmer Gray began to hum. An old tune, wordless and slow, like the sound of the earth itself breathing. And little Bunny understood, in a way that had no words, that the fog would come again, and the firefly would return, and he would follow it once more, because that was what small rabbits did when the world grew dark. He closed his eyes for a moment. The soil beneath his paws was cool. The smell of damp earth rose around him, and the morning stretched ahead, full of ordinary things. Water to carry, seeds to plant, a farmer to help, and a long, slow day of simple work. The fog will return, and the firefly will wake again. That is the rhythm of Green Meadow Farm. Ordinary, slow, and full of trust. Subscribe now so you are here when the next story unfolds. And leave a comment telling us what makes you feel like you are exactly where you belong. He opened his eyes, stood up, and hopped back toward the barn. The sun was climbing. The garden was waiting. And the day had just begun.